coming on the air with those college campus clashes intensifying to a degree we haven't seen before. Look at this. Police entering universities to arrest pro-Palestinian protesters like the hundreds in handcuffs at Columbia. We're live coast to coast with what's happening now and what's next. Also tonight in Wisconsin, a near disaster just barely averted at a middle school. A potential active shooter stopped seconds before he walked inside. We've got the new details on what exactly happened in just a minute. Then developing news out of Arizona tonight, where in just the last 25 minutes, state lawmakers have now officially rolled back one of the strictest abortion bans in the country. That super controversial ban that dated back to the Civil War era. Remember that? What we've just heard from the governor in a second. Plus, how a tweak to financial aid for college students ended up making things a whole lot worse. How it could affect freshmen this fall. And in tonight's original, why some of the hottest tanning trends now taking off have doctors all but screaming, stop. We'll explain later in the show. Hey there, I'm Hallie, and tonight a new intensity, one we haven't seen before on college campuses for the first time since those pro-Palestinian demonstrations began just a couple weeks ago. Watch this.
10 seconds.
So that's the University of Wisconsin-Madison today. You saw police in riot gear pushing back those screaming protesters. At least 34 people have been arrested so far. 4 officers, they say, have been hurt. On the East Coast, you're looking at some 230 arrests at Columbia University, where finals will be remote. A lot of those arrests coming at Hamilton Hall. That's the building that students occupied this week. You see police here. You're about to see them making this kind of they're like putting up this bridge, sort of, to get in through one of the windows on that building on the 2nd floor. The school said it had no choice but to call in the NYPD and ask them to stay in campus for another few weeks until after commencement. Further downtown, student protesters at Fordham are getting interim suspension after setting up their own encampment. You're seeing some video now from inside, crowds chanting, lining the windows of the building from outside. And out west, UCLA is announcing it's canceling all classes through Friday because of what it calls the distress caused by violence. Those are some of the images of what we saw overnight, those fights, those chemicals sprayed into the air, literal fireworks lit by counter-protesters. Steve Patterson is at UCLA, but let's start with Antonia Hilton at Columbia. We've heard New York City officials blame what they called outside agitators for the escalation on campuses over the course of the last 24 hours. But where you are, the NYPD moved in overnight and now will remain with a pretty big police presence for the next couple weeks.
That's right, Hallie. And for anyone who has seen the image of that massive vehicle taking a kind of crane-like shape into one of the windows, that happened right there over my shoulder. And we are hearing from the NYPD that they believe that outside agitators played a role in all of this, that they led the decision to go into Hamilton Hall. They led the barricade there. But some of the students here on campus are pushing back against that, saying that they know and recognize many of the students who were in Hamilton who were dragged out of the building last night and arrested. And so they have pointed out some discrepancies. And you know, we now have a team that's trying to get the actual names and identities of the people who were arrested and more clarity on what was happening in Hamilton Hall. You know, one of the challenges was that reporters were kind of kept on the outside. Reporters, medics, legal observers really couldn't freely walk about campus. And so what we could see was from this outside angle at the building, but what actually transpired inside, we are putting together the pieces of video that comes from the NYPD and from students themselves. I had the chance, though, to speak with one of the student government leaders here, and I want you to take a listen to some of our conversation as students now look to these next couple days before commencement and try to put pieces back together.
I can't really see a lot of, at least our class of 2024 undergraduate students wanting to attend a commencement ceremony held by our president, given that she is the one that's now brought on the NYPD twice.
And that frustration with the president, Manoush Shafiq, is seen across the board here. I have spoken with pro-Palestinian students, organizers, and professors who are disgusted with the decision to bring the NYPD in, who believe that she has not protected their free speech or engaged with them in a fair and serious manner. And then I've spoken to many Jewish students who have described harassment and threats on campus, and they are frustrated with the president and feel that she should have done more for them much, much sooner, Hallie.
And now, obviously, this has affected life on campus for so many people because it's not just exams that are remote. Everything for the rest of the semester is, too.
That's right. So everything, in-person events, activities, they are remote or canceled in some cases. Students still don't have regular swipe access into the central Morningside campus behind me here. There are students who had trouble last night as all of this was unfolding, just getting back to their own dorm rooms. We heard from a friend who said that she described some of her classmates struggling to get to a building where they needed to get a medication that they needed. There was a lot of chaos for students, including students who had nothing to do with this, nothing to do with protests, nothing to do with the decision to go into Hamilton Hall. Many of them were barricaded into their dorm rooms or the spaces in which they were, including student reporters who were in studios at times and told by NYPD that they couldn't leave. And so now that things have calmed down, the encampment is closed, nobody is in Hamilton Hall, there is still this tense feeling in the air and this feeling that even if protests can't happen on the campus, they may continue out on the public streets in the coming days, and even that students may decide not to attend their own commencement if it comes to that on May 15th, Hallie.
And Sonia Hilton live for us there in Manhattan. Thank you. Steve Patterson, let me bring you in over there at UCLA, which just was a conflagration that seemed to explode overnight. You now have UCLA telling students to watch for notifications about when classes will start back up. We know it's not going to happen this week. Do we think that could happen next week?
Hallie, to the left of me, behind me, is Royce Hall. To the right is the library. Now, I don't know the square footage of the encampment, but if you were to think about this area as a football field, these will be the goalposts. We've just heard that these buildings, both of them, will be shut down through Friday. We don't know if that's any indication on what happens to all classes, but we know that part of the decision has to do with the area that was impacted, as you mentioned, distressed, right? Part of that distressed was how much debris was left over after this horrific night that we saw last night. When we came here, there was debris all over the grass, all over this area. This barrier area, basically between this metal fence and that metal fence and where you see protesters, almost serves as like a DMZ where police kind of travel through. It was covered, it was littered, and so too was this area largely. So I think they were worried about the safety impact to students as well. Speaking of that material, some of those students obviously walking by or part of this protest saw what happened last night. We spoke to them. Here's what they told me. Listen.
It really got violent. I'll say for that for a fact. Like, I never seen this tension at all. But yeah, I know it did really got ugly. The police just waited there and they didn't do nothing. And so when the guys found out that the police weren't going to do nothing, they came back and started doing more stuff. Start more all over again.
So to more directly answer your question, Hallie, we don't know, because the official line from officials here on campus is to pay attention to everything that authorities are putting out, and so far they haven't said anything about classes.
So you've done a great job explaining sort of where this encampment is in relation to these two critical buildings at UCLA, but help me understand this, because part of the issue last night as we were watching this all happen, and I was at home watching our coverage right here on NBC News Now of what was going on at Columbia, at UCLA as well. It was the protesters, but then also counter-protesters. Is there a space for those counter-demonstrators at UCLA? Has that group been active here as well?
Oh, yes, there is. So first of all, obviously, protesters here, this goes very deep. This has been growing. It's a footprint that does not stop growing. As you might imagine, that is a target for counter-protesters. If you want to follow me, Alan, I don't know how far we can show this. And you'll see a bunch of media stuff because we're kind of doing this on the fly. But if you see that, it says free the hostages and then obviously Israeli flags. That area has been largely designated unofficially for counter-protesters. They come.
Got it.
We just saw a group of them across the street. And they're butting heads constantly. This didn't just come out of nowhere. It wasn't like suddenly counter-protesters appeared in the middle of the night and then swarmed in. That did happen largely, but tensions have been bubbling for days. Those counter-protesters, as we've been heard reported, were standing here, you know, obviously talking to the protesters. That then hit a boiling point, and it happened to happen what happened last night.
Yeah.
Hallie?
Steve Patterson, thank you so much there, along with your photographer, Alan. Appreciate it. Thank you both. We'll check back in with you in just a little bit. Not far from some of these scenes we just showed you in Madison, Wisconsin. A different story and a different sigh of relief in a nearby town after an active shooter was neutralized, stopped, literally seconds before he tried to walk through the front door of a local middle school. It is still not clear if that person is alive or dead. This whole thing went down just after noon in a town just outside Madison. The school says nobody beside the suspected potential attacker was hurt and that there are no other suspects. With parents, even with their kids safe, still feeling that terror of knowing just how close they might have been to danger.
All we know is that there were some kids that went to shoot. To get a call when you're at work from your babies crying, saying that there's a shooting going on and we're scared and you're 30 minutes away from them.
You see the emotion and the grief on her face. NBC's Maura Barrett is in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin for us. So what happened here? What was it about this school? What was it about this incident that allowed them to stop this potential attacker literally a minute before he walked in?
Yeah, Hallie, we're still waiting to hear a specific timeline of details, but we have heard from the school that the suspect was never able to enter the building because they reached a locked door. And so parents that I've spoken to on the ground here, they're gathering here in neighborhoods waiting for their children to be released from the school just behind me, expressing gratefulness because the fact that the school had these safeguards in place, that their kids had gone through these drills, because mass shootings are something that we've all experienced and know about. And so they said that they don't want it to be something that their kids need to be prepared for, but they're thanking God that it was something that they were prepared for today. I want you to hear from two mothers that I spoke to that expressed that given that the door was locked and they were not able to enter the school.
This is exactly why school doors are locked, for a reason, so that anyone can't come in.
So it is safe knowing that with our doors being locked at all times that they can't get in. But what would have happened if this would have happened in school?
Right.
You know?
Right.
How did he even be able to get the gun into school is the biggest concern.
And the school reiterated this sentiment with a statement they posted on Facebook. That's how we've been getting a lot of information from school officials, posting that you would be so proud of our students and staff, and we're so grateful for our first responders. So it was a combination of the fact that this was practiced, that they've done these drills, and students knew what a full lockdown meant, because that happened mere minutes after the 911 calls came in, and then the fact that first responders were able to come to the scene so quickly. And so, again, it is something that, because this is something that many schools have seen in this country time and time again before, that they had put these safeguards into place. And as far as we know, what police have told us is that nobody outside of the suspect themselves, nobody else inside the school has been hurt, Hallie.
Maura Barrett live for us there in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin. Maura, thank you so much. Out east, we are just learning a new trial for Harvey Weinstein could come as soon as this fall, as Weinstein's back in a Manhattan courtroom late today for the first time since his 23-year prison sentence and rape conviction there was overturned in that just shocking bombshell. You see these pictures of him. That's him in court. So many questions right now. Okay, so what does a retrial look like if it were to happen? When exactly would it start? When specifically this fall? And will the women he's accused of assaulting be willing to testify again if they have to? We should note here that Weinstein, of course, that former media mogul, also faces a 16-year prison sentence over his rape and sexual assault convictions in California. So separate, right? We're talking about what happened in New York, the conviction there. Elwin Lopez is following all of this and joins us now. So the Manhattan DA, Elwin, says he's going to do everything in his power to retry this case. What would that next step look like, and when might we know more about whether Weinstein will have to face another jury in New York, maybe as soon as later this year?
Yeah, Hallie, and that seems to be the case here. Prosecutors are asking for a retrial after Labor Day in September. We don't have an exact date yet, but this is the first time we've seen Harvey Weinstein back in that courtroom after his conviction was overturned. We had a producer in the courtroom. He said that Weinstein looked gaunt. He looked ill. We know that he was using a walker and a wheelchair to get around. Also in that room, though, was one of his accusers, Jessica Mann. She says she's prepared to testify again against Weinstein, but it's unclear whether another accuser will also take the stand. Take a listen to what our attorney, Gloria Allred, had to say today.
The vacating of the conviction was re-traumatizing to her, and that it will be even more traumatic to testify once again.
And as you can see there, Gloria Allred is holding a sign about the Me Too movement. It says the Me Too reckoning will continue. We know that Weinstein's conviction, when it was overturned, it was a shock to women who had celebrated this new era of speaking up against sexual misconduct, especially in the industry. So now there's this renewed sense among those women to get Weinstein convicted once again, and that's something that the DA's office there believes will happen again. Hallie.
Thank you so much, Ellen Lopez. Appreciate that reporting there for us live from L.A. Dangerous and deadly tornadoes now in Kansas and Oklahoma, killing at least one person, with these states dealing with nearly a week, 6 days of tornadoes ripping across not just them, but other spots in America's heartland. You had multiple other people hurt in Kansas with that system, sparking 13 tornadoes in just the last 24 hours, with more potentially violent storms right now on the way in what's been one of the most active tornado seasons ever. Take a look at this video from Kansas.
Big debris. Almost got hit by sheet metal.
You hear them saying, we got to move, big debris. Look at that. You see it swirling there in the air. So scary looking, right in the wind. You see the funnel moving through, ripping up the ground below. It's just incredible to watch the power of even that single twister, what appears to be a reported tornado. We're just getting some new drone footage, too, showing the absolute devastation for one neighborhood in that state. You have entire communities just wiped out. Our team is tracking more than 180 reported tornadoes just since Thursday. I want to bring in Maggie Vespa in Westmoreland, Kansas. It's like we keep having this conversation, Maggie, because
I know
they're bracing for tornadoes, right? They're bracing for this severe weather. The severe weather hits, and now dealing with the aftermath there. I have to imagine they are so fatigued.
They're exhausted. I mean, because these are people who, sure, Westmoreland was just hit last night, but they had been seeing this nearly week of tornadoes kind of rip through their region, rip through the Great Plains and the Midwest. They knew they were in the bullseye, and now they're all trying to clean quickly. You can even see this bobcat behind me in the background there, trying to sift through massive piles of rubble to find the things that are important to them, and then hopefully get to what they think is a safe space before the next round of severe weather rolls through. I'll just kind of do the walk and talk we've all gotten familiar with, right? Again, you see this rubble here. This is a lot of what used to be a home. And then you look over here and you can see it. You might be able to hear the chainsaw in the background, a tree cut up and piled up on the edge of this road. First responders have been zipping up and down this road, trying to get to people who need it. Again, this is Westmoreland, Kansas. This was hit last night. That twister that you showed, that hit this area, killing at least one person, authorities say. But we are talking more than 180 reported tornadoes since Thursday. We are talking 6 straight days of tornado reports every single day since Thursday. We've been talking about this routine, and a total, Hallie, of 6 people killed across multiple states, including the person that was killed here, authorities say, last night. Multiple residents telling us it's a woman, but authorities have yet to confirm that point. And then we're also talking a lot about that 4-month-old baby killed over the weekend in Oklahoma, a baby girl. Her mother telling us overnight that they were inside their home when a tornado in Oklahoma tossed it 200 yards. Everyone else in the family survived. The 4-month-old was killed. That mother saying, just quote, "We are heartbroken and asking for privacy." So, Hallie, it's impossible to imagine what they're going through. And then, as you point out, the cycle continues, and everybody's getting ready for the next round of storms, which should arrive here later tonight.
So scary. Maggie Vespa, thank you for being there. Be safe. We appreciate you showing us the scene on the ground and bringing us those stories. To the campaign trail now, because in the next hour, we expect to see former President Trump try to make the most of the little time he has away from his criminal trial in New York. It's on a break today, so you see his travels for the week, heading back to Manhattan tomorrow, not long after wrapping up a rally out in Wisconsin. You see him there. He's focusing on the border and the economy, painting a fairly dark portrait of the country if he were not to be elected. Listen.
We're going to save our economy, and we're going to bring our country back from hell. We have a country that's in hell. Look at what's going on. Look at the crime.
Shaquille Brewster is live for us in Waukesha, Wisconsin. We heard from the president about a lot of stuff there, right? One of the interesting things we were listening for was would he talk about his criminal trial? Because that is where he has to be, typically 4 days out of the week. No trial today. We had a different, there's different off days at different times. What's interesting to me is your conversations with voters doesn't sound like they are really talking about his trial all that much.
Right, you have almost a split screen, Hallie, because inside Donald Trump, he did mention his trial a little bit. He went after his legal troubles, repeating some of the lines that we've heard before, calling the judge crooked, for example. And it was something that did get a response from folks inside of that room. But of course, in elections like this, especially a state like Wisconsin, where you're talking about a key battleground state, it's about the people outside of the room, the people he needs to win over or win back in this election. And I want you to listen to what those folks had to tell me when I asked about how much they're paying attention to the trial and if it's impacting how they view Donald Trump as a candidate.
I don't take it seriously, and I think very few people do.
My dad will talk about it, but I kind of tune it out, unfortunately. I guess I don't want somebody that has been through a trial for criminal offenses to be my president of the United States.
That last woman actually told me that she supported Donald Trump in 2020 and that what she's hearing about the trial is shifting her away from Donald Trump and making her at least consider Joe Biden in this election. That was definitely a one-off conversation, Hallie, and I think the biggest sense that I got is because this is not a televised trial, because you can't watch it and listen to the testimony and hear the arguments from the lawyers, many people are tuning it out. And if they are checking into it, just seeing the headlines without digging in deeply, Hallie.
You know, that's an interesting point. As you know, we've been doing these special reports at the close of court every day when trial wraps up, making that point, right, that we're taking you where these cameras can't go, because it is, I think, a little bit difficult to make that feel accessible for folks who would be interested in knowing more about that. There's also a factor here of, you know, the general election full on in full swing, Shaq, as you know, and President Biden really going after former President Trump on the issue of reproductive rights, on the issue of abortion access, after Mr. Trump spoke about that today. Here's what the president said.
There seems to be no limit to how invasive Trump would let the state be. This should be a decision between a woman and her doctor, and the government should get out of people's lives.
You had Kamala Harris, the vice president, down in Florida today, as the New York Times put it, looking to make Donald Trump the face of that state's very strict abortion ban. What the factor here, though, Donald Trump is kind of leaning into it. He's saying today you're going to hear a lot more about abortion access from him on the campaign trail.
Right, Hallie, leaning fully into it. And, you know, those points that you heard from the president and vice president in other areas, I'll tell you, you heard that from Democrats here in Wisconsin as well. The lieutenant governor having a press conference earlier today hitting Donald Trump on abortion. The Democratic Party putting up a billboard in this area hitting Donald Trump for embracing the overturning of Roe v. Wade. But you mentioned on the stage, he essentially was signaling bring it on. He says he's going to talk about this more and more. He talked about him liking the fact that this is a state decision and that these will be decisions that individual voters in individual states will have to make. It is definitely a vulnerability, and that's something that Democrats are really signaling that this is something they're going to continue to hit him with. But he did what he could on that stage and even kind of joked that, look, this wasn't in the teleprompter, but I'm talking about it anyways, and you're going to hear more from me on this issue. It's an interesting thing to watch as we continue to watch this campaign and as he campaigns more in the weeks and months to come, Hallie.
Including, not too long from now, still remaining, of course, in the critical Midwest and some other states he needs to win. Shaq, we'll talk with you, I know, again, coming up later next hour. Appreciate it. Later this hour, we've got to get to that developing news out of Arizona. Speaking of abortion access, lawmakers in that state just repealing one of the country's most restrictive abortion bans. We're going to have a live report in a second. Plus, bird flu showing up in cows across this country. Why the FDA says that cottage cheese in your fridge is still good. Plus, this year's May Day protests around the world in some spots turning violent. That's in the 5 Things after the break. To some breaking news in just the last maybe 40 minutes. Arizona rolling back that Civil War era abortion ban we've told you about. That would have been the most restrictive law in the country. I want to show you the state Senate late today voting to repeal the ban. Now remember this one. This was a ban that was allowed to go into effect. That court ruling, the Arizona State Supreme Court said it could go into effect dating back to the Civil War era, 1864. It would let the state essentially ban abortions in all instances except for life for the mother. That was one exception. 2 Republicans joining all 14 Democrats. Protesters nearly getting face-to-face outside the State House, too. Watch.
Get out of Phoenix, devil. Hallelujah. In the name of Jesus. Praise God. We rebuke every devil in the name of Jesus.
Looks pretty face-to-face there. The state's Democratic governor now says she will sign this repeal if and when it gets to her desk. But when that happens is a big question. We've got team coverage on this key issue with Marissa Parra live for us in Florida. But let's start with Dana Griffin in Phoenix. In just the last half an hour, you've spoken with Governor Hobbs, right? Talking about this gap, because it sounds like, Dana, the law will, for a very brief period of time, go into effect before it's repealed. Help us understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, there's the 15-week law on the books, but this 1864 abortion ban is set to take effect June 27th. And here's the issue, because this repeal that lawmakers have approved, even when signed by the governor, which is expected as early as tomorrow, it won't take effect until 90 days after the legislative session. We know that last year that session ended July 31st, and there could be an effort by Republicans to try to expand that. So at this point, there will likely be a period in time where that 1864 law will be in effect. The Attorney General has tried to stop that. She has filed a motion with the state Supreme Court asking for a 90-day stay, but that still may not be enough time. Listen to part of what I asked the governor just moments ago. Could this kind of be a moot point when it comes to trying to get this enacted before the November ballot initiative?
Well, the legislature has made it clear, and I have made it clear as well, that our intent is that this ban is repealed, and courts should listen to that. And hopefully there'll be a stay so that it won't go into effect.
Yeah, but that's not guaranteed. So I want to reiterate those facts again. So 90 days after the legislative session ends, that could be late summer. So they may not see a repeal of this, what they call draconian law, until the fall, maybe even the winter time. Republicans could stall that. And it's also important to note that this has been a very contentious issue, and lawmakers were only able to get this through because of the Republicans that sided with Democrats to push this through. Hallie?
Yeah, almost immediately we saw, Dana, and we covered it with you right here on this show. We saw Republicans distancing themselves, some of them almost right away, as soon as this very controversial ruling came out several weeks ago. It sounds like, though, from the timeline that you're laying out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's possible that this repeal could end up bumping up against the November election when abortion rights advocates are pretty confident they're going to have a ballot initiative for people going to the polls.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So that initiative is going to be on the November ballot. And if that is approved, that could go in effect as early as December. So there is possible, like if they were to end the legislative session, say in 2 weeks, then there would be there would be a little bit of overlap, but they would still be able to codify reproductive rights in the state, and it would just be a small window of time. So this repeal, you know, it is kind of like a moot point, but, you know, the governor said this was so important to pass, and that's what we saw here today in Arizona.
Dana Griffin, live for us there in Phoenix. Thank you so much. We know that abortion rights is front and center in a very different state, to the other side of the country, Florida, where as of this morning, a 6-week near total abortion ban is now in effect. You had Vice President Kamala Harris, as we talked about a second ago in the show, heading to the state, really trying to pin the blame for this issue on former President Trump.
I have seen firsthand, then, that this truly is a healthcare crisis. And Donald Trump is the architect.
Marissa Parra, as we mentioned, is live for us in Jacksonville. Talk to us about what you're hearing from clinics today as this near total ban goes into effect and is already affecting some providers.
Hey, Hallie. Well, today was day 1 of the ban, but we technically started seeing the impacts of this yesterday. For those familiar, Florida has a 2-day visit rule. So you have the first day, you have a consultation, and then you have to have a minimum 24-hour waiting period before you can then get your medication or the procedure, depending on the path that you decide to choose. So with that in mind, given that today was the effective day of the 6-week ban, that means yesterday they started having to turn away people once they had their consultation, they got that ultrasound, happened. And women were finding out that they were further along than they realized, beyond the 6-week mark. And so today I followed up with the abortion clinics around the state that we've been talking to, including here in Jacksonville. And every single one of them telling me they have already had to turn away patients. And Hallie, what I thought was striking is several of them telling me that they found patients who had no idea they were 6 weeks. They were 6 weeks and a couple of days even. So this morning we had a chance to speak with a physician who provides abortion care. And among the many things we asked her what exactly changes? What does it look like, the difference between treating a patient who was 6 weeks along that they would have been able to treat last week versus today? And if that same person came today,
we would have to say, I'm so sorry. We can't care for you.
Are you prepared to say that today?
Well, I think, you know, it's devastating. It's awful. But the law has changed.
So, Hallie, I want to show you something. I mentioned I've been to several different abortion care clinics in the state, Fort Pierce, Florida, Jacksonville, a couple of them here in Jacksonville, including the one I'm standing in front of. And one of the things I saw, these are writings on the wall of the bathroom inside the clinic. And that one right there, I traveled 5 hours because of laws in my state, it says. And that is telling, because that is what we have heard. We chose to be in Jacksonville for a reason. It's because it's close to the state lines. And we know that abortion care clinics here say that roughly 1 in 3 patients, abortion care seekers, that historically would be from out of state. Many of them saying they would see people from Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, most commonly, states with much stricter laws, Hallie. And so now we are seeing, when you look at the map, what people are calling an abortion care desert. The closest states within driving distance, North Carolina, which has a 72-hour waiting period, and Virginia. Hallie?
See that map there. Marissa Parr live for us there in Jacksonville. Glad to have you there reporting on all of it, Marissa. Appreciate it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, J&J offering to pay like $6.5 billion to settle tens of thousands of lawsuits that say its baby powder and some other talc products were contaminated with asbestos and caused ovarian cancer. Now, this doesn't mean it's happening for sure. The people suing have a few months to say yes or no. Number 2, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says she will call a vote next week to try to oust fellow Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson. That's after he worked with Democrats to pass things like more aid to Ukraine. We told you yesterday how Democrats have already said they'd shut down the motion if it came up. Number 3, people around the world are protesting for May Day, a.k.a. International Workers' Day, and in some spots it's turning violent. Look at Istanbul here. Police firing off tear gas and rubber bullets. Officials say they detained more than 200 people. In Paris, tear gas there too. You can see folks running away. And in the Philippines here, police sprayed a water cannon as protesters tried to get past a barricade. Number 4, the FDA says things like sour cream and cottage cheese. I may not be able to say it, but you can sure eat it. That's what they say, that it's fine. It's totally safe, even with this bird flu outbreak in dairy cows we've been telling you about. The agency tested nearly 300 pasteurized dairy products in about 40 states. They didn't find any trace of the virus. Number 5, Gerber just launching an application to find its next Gerber baby, and this year will feature more babies than ever. The company says they've gotten so many entries, their website glitched. They're working to fix it. They say they will announce a winner sometime this summer. Still ahead, a potential menopause game changer that doctors rejected for decades. Why new research could change a lot of what we know about hormone therapy. And what do you do when your fire department is on fire? That's next. The Secretary of State in the Middle East tonight, hoping he can somehow stop the Israeli military from moving forward with an all-out ground assault in Rafah, and saying now is the time for that very elusive ceasefire deal to actually happen. Secretary Blinken talking directly with family members of hostages in between big meetings, hashing out details of a possible truce. Listen.
There is a very strong proposal on the table right now. Hamas needs to say yes and needs to get this done. That is our determination, and we will not rest, we will not stop until you're reunited with your loved ones.
You heard him say that Hamas needs to say yes. It is not at all clear that that's going to happen, whether Hamas will actually agree to the terms of the ceasefire, which could include a 6-week pause in fighting. You see it here, the release of at least 33 hostages in the first stage, as well as the release of some Palestinian prisoners as well. Josh Letterman is covering it all. The Secretary of State really indicated it's now up to Hamas. The ball is now in Hamas's court to decide on this deal. So where do things stand?
Well, right now, Hallie, we're simply waiting for a response from Hamas to this Israeli proposal. Our team on the ground in Israel has spoken to Hamas officials. They are telling us that there is no set date on which Hamas is going to respond to this proposal. But the Israelis really have taken some significant steps toward Hamas's position at the negotiating table. When you think of the fact that they have lowered the number of hostages they are demanding, remember it used to be 40, now it's 33. They have acquiesced on allowing large numbers of Gazans to return to their homes in the north, which was a major ask from Hamas. But the Hamas point of view, which they've expressed in the last few days, is that their major sticking point has not been addressed. They still want to see not a temporary ceasefire, but a permanent end to this war, because their argument is if we are going to give up our biggest piece of leverage here, which is these hostages, why would we do that if it's not going to bring about an end to the conflict? And add to that the fact that Prime Minister Netanyahu to this day is insisting he is still going to go ahead with that Rafah operation, deal or no deal. He says that even if they get this deal, he's going to have this operation into a place where the majority of Gazan civilians are now sheltering. And so that adds one more factor to the calculations for Hamas. If they know that on day one there's a deal, day two Israel is still going to go into Gaza potentially in a big way in Rafah. But U.S. officials as well as Israeli officials really believe at this point, Hallie, that the window could be closing, that given the health of the hostages, which is very precarious, the amount of time they have been held hostage in Gaza, as well as a lot of the other political factors, both in Israel and frankly in the U.S., that this may be the last opportunity to try to get a deal to bring these hostages home, and the opportunity for that deal could soon be ending. Hallie?
Josh Lenneman, thank you so much. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, police in Austin, Texas, warning a disturbing outbreak of opioid-related overdose calls is linked to at least 8 deaths there. Officers say they responded to more than 50 calls in just the last 48 hours. They say they haven't seen this many overdoses in nearly a decade. They're investigating. Out of our Northeast Bureau, dramatic body cam video of police saving a little boy's life. This 3-year-old was with his family on a bus to New Jersey when he started choking. You can see police rushing over, performing CPR until the boy started breathing again. He was taken to the hospital and fortunately, thankfully, is expected to be okay. And out of our Western Bureau, firefighters out of LA responding to a call, well, from inside the house, kind of. It's a fire department. You can see all the damage here. The station was totally staffed at the time it happened. Nobody was injured. Police are looking into what caused it. Some big new research out today could affect how millions of women manage their health. It's basically a follow-up to a huge study 2 decades ago that at the time challenged how safe hormone therapy was for menopause, linking those drugs to a bunch of really bad health risks like strokes and cancer. Almost overnight, you saw doctors stop treatment. Well, now this new research says hormone therapy is a lot safer than we first thought, and it could really change how we treat menopause. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is joining us now to break it down. This is like a big deal. And not even just for women of a certain age, like dealing with premenopause or perimenopause or whatever, for any woman who has this on the horizon at some point in their life. Talk us through it.
It is a really, really big deal. You know, 2002, I was just about a year into practice when that original study came out, increased risk of heart disease and stroke and cancer and pulmonary embolism. And as you said, I mean, everybody stopped their hormone replacement therapy. And even to this day, when I'm taking a history for osteoporosis and I ask women if they were on HRT, they shake their heads like, no, 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 I would never do that. So you can see how difficult it is to sort of have the sea change in the way we think about this, but it's so important. Basically, what the researchers really, kind of determined, Hallie, was that the patients in whom we saw those side effects were really much older. And what we were really interested in was what was going on to women between the ages of 50 and 60. And in fact, what they found that there wasn't an increased risk of overall mortality or heart disease. There was a reduced risk of fracture. There was a little blip in terms of breast cancer risk that was increased in combo therapy with estrogen and progesterone, but a decreased risk of breast cancer with estrogen only. So, again, I think it's going to take a little time for people to get comfortable, maybe maybe for providers to get comfortable. But I've been counseling patients for a couple of years with these really bad menopausal symptoms. If you're under the age of 60 and don't have a ton of risk factors for hormone-related issues, it's probably okay to take for a couple of years.
What are you going to tell your patients when they ask about it?
That's, because I treat osteoporosis and because I know how important hormones are and how important your estrogen is in sort of preserving that bone density in those first couple of years after menopause, it's a conversation that I have with my patients really every day. The treatment of the most significant, what we call vasomotor symptoms of menopause, the hot flashes and the night sweats, estrogen, hormonal therapy, and progesterone are the most effective treatments. Fortunately, Hallie, there are other medicines that can be used. There was a treatment that was approved a year ago, which was a first of its kind that kind of affected the areas of the brain that are responsible for temperature regulation. So there are alternatives to hormone replacement therapy, but it really still is one of the most tried and true and effective treatments. And I think in the right patient, it can be very, very safe and effective. I think this is going to be welcome news for a lot of providers who are trying to manage their female patients as best as they can and give them the safest treatment and the best treatment.
Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, the government's FAFSA fumble, why millions of students are finding themselves in limbo tonight. That's next. Tonight, the end of what could be a pretty frustrating college decision day for millions of college hopefuls, thanks to the, honestly, dumpster fire that was the government's rollout of this new version of FAFSA. And you probably know FAFSA. It's that federal student aid application. With the system's bugs, the issues, the delays, now forcing some applicants to press pause on making the decision of where they're going to school. Now, these issues started after the Department of Education totally revamped the FAFSA online application this year, trying to make it shorter and simpler. Hey, that's great, right? Sounds good. But many applicants say it was virtually impossible for them to actually submit the application, that they got the forms 3 months later than usual. Issues like if their parent didn't have a social security number, they couldn't actually submit the application. The Department of Education and a contractor also allegedly miscalculated figures on hundreds of thousands of applications, which set some people back weeks. And experts say the impact here could be catastrophic, leading to a drop in college enrollment we haven't seen since the pandemic. One group tracking FAFSA applications says they're nearly 30% lower right now than this time last year. That is a lot. That is an extraordinary number. NBC's Brian Chung is following this for us. It feels like perhaps most generous interpretation, the DOE was trying to make things easier for families. Instead, for some of these families, they made it way harder. What happened?
Yeah, well, so what happened was that they tried to change the form to make it shorter. But the problem is when you change the form, you're changing the way that the government actually collects the data. And if the technical aspect isn't there, then maybe everything gets botched. And that's kind of the worst case scenario that played out in this case. It set off essentially a chain reaction of situations where, as you mentioned, it was something as unique as the Social Security numbers that were tripping up, the way that this data was being collected to the DOE and FAFSA itself, making errors in the way that they were distributing what they said was going to be the financial aid that these students were going to get. Either way you cut or slice it, for these students that have been waiting to try to decide what college they want to go to, this makes it even more difficult. It's already a very expensive, very taxing, very stressful process, but you have so many students that were hopeful by May 1st they'd be deciding what cap they were going to put on to decide what school they were going to be at in the fall, who are now having to wait for FAFSA so that they can then get more clarity from the schools that they've applied to about what that financial package is going to look like. So could that lead to fewer students enrolling later on in the fall? Could that lead to them taking on loans in the absence of knowing how much the government is going to hook them up with? Small colleges might have really the short end of the stick here. And then, of course, there could be deep cuts to school staff if they don't have predictability either. So, Hallie, on a personal level, we already know that this was a very stressful experience. It was really stressful for me when I was applying for college. This likely makes that even more stressful for those going through it right now.
So what's next then?
Yeah, well, when it comes to those students that are facing delays with FAFSA, and again, the Department of Education says that they've already gotten 8 million applications processed. Many schools are offering some relief in the form of pushing back that decision date from today to, in some cases, the middle of this month, or even as late as as late as the middle of next year. The Department of Education does say that new applications are being currently processed within 3 days. They say they've really gotten past the majority of the bugs that they've experienced. But again, take a look at the deadlines. There are 3 ones you need to be aware of. The FAFSA FAFSA online application is open through the end of June, but there are also state deadlines that are going to be different in addition to the individual school deadlines. Make sure that if you are applying right now, you are looking at all three of those deadlines, Hallie.
Super smart. Brian Chung, thank you very much. Lots to follow on that one. Appreciate it. We are coming on the air with those college campus clashes intensifying to a degree we haven't seen before. Police heading into universities to arrest pro-Palestinian protesters, like by the hundreds in handcuffs at Columbia. We're live coast to coast with what's happening tonight and what's next. Also tonight in Wisconsin, a near disaster just barely averted at a middle school. A potential active shooter stopped just seconds before he walked inside. We've got those new details in just a minute. Then Harvey Weinstein. About to show him to you in court. There he is today, learning when he could get a new trial out of New York after that bombshell decision to overturn his conviction there. What this all could mean for his California sentence. Plus, Donald Trump on the trail tonight for the first time since his trial began, trying to make the most of his time off from the courtroom. What he's saying now, or more specifically, not saying, and how his competitor is trying to capitalize. Plus, that breaking news out of Arizona, state lawmakers rolling back one of the strictest abortion bans in the country, the one that dates back to the Civil War. What we've just heard from the governor coming up in just a couple of minutes. Hey, I'm Hallie, and tonight a new intensity, one we haven't seen before on college campuses for the first time since those pro-Palestinian demonstrations started about 2 weeks ago. Watch this. So you're looking at the University of Madison, Wisconsin there. University of Wisconsin-Madison, I should say, with police in riot gear pushing back screaming protesters. At least 34 people have been arrested so far. Police say 4 officers were hurt. Out west, you have UCLA announcing it's canceling all classes through Friday because of what it calls the distress caused by violence. Overnight there, we saw fights. You're seeing some of that here, these clashes, chemicals sprayed into the air, fireworks lit by counter-protesters. With LA's mayor in just the last few minutes tonight calling for a full investigation into what's happening on campus. Over on the East Coast, some 230 arrests at Columbia University, where they're just announcing that final exams will be remote. We saw a lot of activity at Hamilton Hall. That's the building students occupied this week. Want to show you police putting up this truck to be able to access one of the windows of the second floor of that building. The school said it had no choice but to call in the NYPD and ask them to stay on campus until mid-May, until after commencement. Further downtown, student protesters at Fordham are getting interim suspensions after setting up their own encampment. This is some video from inside that sort of tent city. You see the crowds chanting. You see the crowds lining up against the window there. Steve Patterson is at UCLA. Antonia Hilton is at Columbia. Steve, we'll start with you, where the chancellor at UCLA is calling what's happening on campus a dark chapter in their history. Now we're just hearing about this investigation that the mayor wants to see. She has now made her way back to California. What's the sense there?
Yeah, the mayor wants a full-throated investigation of what has been called abhorrent, you know, both inside and outside the camp after what happened last night. But also, at the same time, the president of the California university system giving us actual tangible numbers as related to what happened last night. 15 people injured, 1 taken to the hospital. And again, echoing sort of the need for a full-throated investigation. But on top of that, reasserting that this is now an unlawful encampment, the one that you're seeing behind me as you see sort of protesters starting to sort of hurriedly, I want to say, armor up for maybe what's happening next, because part of that announcement was to announce that at some point this camp would be dismantled. We don't know if that is tonight. We don't know if that is tomorrow. We don't know if that is next week. We know classes has been canceled today and will likely maybe be canceled through the weekend. But as far as an official word of telegraphing us when this may end, we're not sure yet. But we are starting to get some of those signals here. Meanwhile, signals coming from students about just how disheartened they were when all of this went down last night. Here's a few that I spoke to. Listen to this.
It really got violent, I'll say for a fact. Like, I never seen this tension at all. But, yeah, I know it did get it really got ugly. That the police just waited there and they didn't do nothing. And so when the guys found out that the police weren't going to do nothing, they came back and started doing more stuff. Start more all over again.
That was Edgar, and among some of the things he told me about how horrible this was repeating the timeline, something that we've heard from multiple students and multiple protesters saying that all of this started somewhere around 11 o'clock. Police didn't really show up until about 1 o'clock and didn't really start separating protester from counter-protester until somewhere around 3:30. That has to be part of this investigation. Why did it take so long to call outside law enforcement to get in here to really do the work that needed to be done? I think a lot of people are going to want to know that with now 15 people injured. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, real quick, Steve, before you go on, I don't want to put you on the spot. Can you just give us a sense of the sort of landscape there? Because the protesters are behind you. Counter-protesters have gathered kind of on the other side of where the media is, right?
Yeah, so if you were to look, and if I turn you around right now, you'd see all the media. You're going to see my sound guy. It's David. Say hi, David.
Hi,
Behind
David
there,
Allen. Thank
you will
you.
see free hostages. Yeah, Hamas free hostages. That is obviously where some of the counter-protesters have gathered over the past few days. It is not official as this encampment is. And obviously this encampment continues to grow. So it's a growing situation. There's a reason why there's friction here, and that's part of the reason why it popped off last night. Hallie?
Steve Patterson, live for us there in L.A. We'll see what happens tonight. Steve, glad you're there. Thanks. Antonia Hilton is live for us at Columbia University in New York, which has been the epicenter of so many of these tensions. But as we've been talking about, Antonia, those tensions have spread now coast to coast.
That's right, Hallie, and we're actually just getting new reporting from our colleague Tom Winter. The NYPD is about to go into Fordham University, where there have been a group of protesters for much of the day today. And so we're going to be keeping an eye on what transpires just a little ways downtown from where we are at the moment. I can tell you here on campus, while it is quiet, the encampment has been cleared out. Nobody is left inside of Hamilton Hall, the site where people had barricaded themselves in. The feeling is still one of frustration, of disgust, and of sadness. No matter sort of what type of student that you talk to, Jewish students tell me they feel like the administration abandoned them long ago, hadn't done enough to keep things from escalating. And then students who have been involved in protests, but not necessarily certainly inside Hamilton Hall, they feel like their free speech rights weren't respected. Take a listen to a conversation that I had with one of the student body presidents here at Columbia, who has tried to foster that dialogue and work with students on all sides.
I can't really see a lot of, at least our class of 2024 undergraduate students wanting to attend a commencement ceremony held by our president, given that she is the one that's now brought on the NYPD twice.
And the NYPD and the pain of seeing them come not just once but twice is something that she said hangs over really everyone in the broader Columbia community. And now that the administration has made clear that they want to kind of go back to business as usual, they've made clear they want to hold commencement on May 15th. The question is, do students and does the broader community go along with that? Some of the students have already left campus, Jewish students who haven't felt safe, and then other students. I met a mom who came here to pick up her freshman yesterday who just felt like this had all gone too far, Hallie.
Antonia, as you're speaking here, and I just want to explain to our viewers what we're seeing. I don't know if you can see it, Antonia, as you're in the field there, but on the left side of our screen, we're looking at Fordham University. You mentioned that law enforcement operation, as police are calling it, that is about to go down there. We are seeing some of those officers lined up. Antonia, I don't know, now this looks like an aerial view from our partners there at our station in New York. Antonia, I don't know if you're able to get a sense of what that looks like, but you were there during the law enforcement operation at Columbia last night. It sounds like we are preparing for, to a degree at least, a round 2 at Fordham. Although it could look very different. Fair?
It could look very different. I mean, certainly the escalation and just the amount of mobilization, the number of students in some way tangentially involved in protests or counter-protests here at Columbia has been really expansive, not just for weeks since the nation's eyes have been turned toward this campus, but actually for months, really right after October 7th. And so we'll be watching to see, does the operation that the NYPD leads into Fordham tonight, does it happen in a similar fashion to what we saw transpire here? For anyone who missed or was under a rock last night, right behind me here This is Amsterdam and 116th. There were tons of officers, hundreds of officers around the campus, many of them in riot gear. There was a massive vehicle that they went right through. They brought it up to a window there and broke into Hamilton Hall. Will similar tactics, vehicles, technology be used tonight? That's the question, Hallie.
Antonio Hilton, live for us there at Columbia, with obviously that action happening, or set to happen, it seems, at Fordham. Antonio, thank you. We're going to keep an eye on these live pictures. Again, coming into us now from New York City. We've seen it from the ground. We've seen it from the air. We're going to watch what happens. We'll bring you any updates as we get them. But as we do that, I also want to bring you down to North Carolina at UNC Chapel Hill, because we've seen some activity there, too. Sam Brock is there. Protesters broke through some barriers, keeping them out of an encampment. And there was this moment where there was the replacement of a Palestinian flag with an American one, Sam, right?
Yeah. That's correct, Hallie. Look, yesterday was the last day of classes here at UNC. They were canceled in the afternoon. And to put it mildly, there was a lot of friction and a lot of tension. This started at 6 o'clock in the morning when the police first came in and they broke up an encampment that had been there for 5 days. They ended up detaining, Hallie, 36 people. 30 of them were cited for trespassing. That was just the beginning, though, because hours later after that, a pro-Palestinian group, Students for Justice in Palestine, came back. And as you said, they took down the American flag and replaced it with the Palestinian flag. And you just think about all of the symbolism and importance that is wrapped up in that. So that process takes place. Then the students here, a lot of student body, fraternity brothers, got together, put the flag back up. Then the same process plays out all over again. And then those same frat brothers from Pi Kappa Phi step in. They hoist the flag up, and they're holding it there for like 15 or 20 minutes. I spoke with a groundskeeper here, Bob, who's been working at UNC Chapel Hill for 27 years. He saw the fracas that was taking place. He runs in there and provides a buffer for the students as they're trying to figure out, how do we get it back up? Then, about 20, 30 minutes later, the UNC chancellor and administration come back to applause. And this is quite a jarring scene here. You're looking right now at video where you'll see those students holding it up in the distance. When the administration returns, Hallie, I want to play that sequence for you and talk about it on the back end. Take a listen. How did people perceive that flag being taken down?
I think people were really, really hurt, and it showed with some of the students that held the flag up, and they were able to get it down into a safe place. I think we have to get different policies to stop this in the future, and it's across the country. It's not just happening here.
There are a lot of students online on X commenting on this, saying, look, I don't know a lot about what's going on in Gaza, but I can tell you it does not make me feel good inside to see the American flag come down. I was so proud of that moment of seeing it rehoisted. And the internet has responded, Hallie, as only the internet can. There is a GoFundMe account that was set up for a party for these fraternity brothers that has now generated more than $100,000. And the language is so good, I just have to read this to you. Armed in vineyard vines in Patagonia, these triumphant Bohemians protected Old Glory, and now we are celebrating them. Back to you, Hallie.
Sam Brock, live for us there in Chapel Hill. Thank you very much. So listen, we got to take you out west for some breaking news coming into us in just the last hour or so. In a dramatic move here, Arizona state lawmakers are rolling back that Civil War-era abortion ban we've told you about that would become the most restrictive law in the country, or would have become until tonight. You see the state Senate here. This is the vote to repeal the ban that dates back to 1864. It has very few exceptions. 2 Republicans joined all 14 Democrats, with protesters at one point really kind of getting pretty close to each other outside the State House. Protesters and counter-protesters. Watch.
Get out of Phoenix, devil. Hallelujah. In the name of Jesus. Praise God. We rebuke every devil in the name of Jesus.
The state's Democratic governor says she will sign this repeal if and when it gets to her desk. Dana Griffin is live for us now in Phoenix here. Okay, this would be, if it went into effect, one of the strictest abortion bans in the country. It sounds like, obviously, now that this repeal has been voted on and passed, it is going to go to Governor Hobbs's desk. You talked to her about what this means potentially for November, when a ballot initiative will be sort of in place in the state. Talk to us through what the practical reality would be is on the ground.
Yeah, and the reason why there is still this push to remind voters there's still a November initiative coming on the ballot because they still want to codify reproductive rights. This repeal means that the 15-week abortion ban still stands for now, and for some that is still too restrictive. I asked her about the future of abortion care in this state. Listen to what she told me. What does today, this moment, mean for the future of reproductive health care in the state?
Well, I think that since this Supreme Court decision, Arizonans have sent a clear message that they don't want the government and politicians in our healthcare decisions.
And as you mentioned, the governor says that she expects that bill to reach her desk by tomorrow, and she says she is going to sign it. Hallie?
There's also a gap, right, where for a short period of time, it sounds like the law will go into effect. How does that work?
Yeah, and that's the key here, because this 1864 ban is slated to go in effect June 27th. But the repeal, although even if the governor signs it tomorrow, there is still a 90-day gap after the legislative session ends. So, Hallie, even if the session were to end in 2 weeks, that still puts us out to mid-August. So there's about 2 months that this 1864 law, which means no abortions will be allowed in the state unless it saves the life of the mother. And so that's why there's a push by the Attorney General to get a 90-day stay. But still, there's going to be some overlap here. And that's why the governor is now pushing people to still show up in November and to vote, because they want to make sure they codify reproductive rights in the state. Hallie?
Dana Griffin live for us there in Phoenix with a lot to follow tonight and in the days and weeks to come. Thank you. To Wisconsin now, where so many families are breathing an unbelievable sigh of relief after an active shooter was stopped literally seconds before he tried to walk through the front door of a local middle school. It is still not clear if that person is alive or dead. It all happened just after noon in a town outside the city of Madison. The school says nobody besides the suspected attacker was hurt and that there are no other suspects. With parents, even with their kids safe tonight, still feeling the terror of knowing how close this came.
All we know is that there were some kids that went to shoot. To get a call when you're at work from your babies crying, saying that there's a shooting going on and we're scared and you're 30 minutes away from them.
NBC's Maura Barrett is in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin for us, and it sounds like, Maura, that dismissal is just starting even as we speak now, as students have been asked to remain in the building while this investigation happened. They're just now getting the chance to go home.
Yeah, Hallie, it's been hours that they've been waiting in their classrooms. They've been able to go to the bathroom, we've been told, but they have been waiting with their classmates to be reunited with their families. It'll be a slow reunification process. They're starting with kindergartners, first and second graders. So those middle schoolers where that threat happened, as we understand it, are still being held at the moment. But they have talked about the reunification process happening slowly over the next few hours. And so parents are very eager to be reunited with their kids because, unfortunately, a school shooting like this, or the threat of one, is something that they've always feared and that their kids have been prepared for. They've heard from their kids throughout the day and heard how they were used to having these drills. They said, hey, I never thought that this drill would come in handy, but here we are. I actually spoke with one father who said his kid was out at recess, his 14-year-old son, and once he heard the gunshots, he ran. He left the school premises because he knew to run, hide, fight, kind of what you're trained in that situation. And so they ran. He saved himself and 8 other students that ran off campus because they didn't know how it was going to unfold. I want you to hear a little bit from Rob Chappelle, the father that we spoke with, about how harrowing this was all to him.
I've made it a point when I drop the kids off at school to say I love you because there's just a possibility that this would happen. And it occurred to me that I was glad that I did that this morning.
Because you just don't know.
You just don't know what's going to happen.
He says his son is likely still processing emotionally, but that he's okay. He was able to reunite with his mother because they ran off campus. They weren't waiting inside the school there. But it is really just chilling to think about how these kids have had to prepare for something like this, and really lucky just to see how everything turned out here today.
Do we know anything else? I mean, the question that I have is on the quote-unquote TikTok, right? In other words, the timeline here. What happened? What does it mean that this suspected attacker was neutralized? How did they find out that this was going to be potentially an attack in the first place? What happened? It's just a huge question mark tonight.
It's a big question mark, and I think, quite frankly and unfortunately,
we've covered a lot of these mass shootings, right? And so the fact that we are hours after the fact, the calls came in at 11 a.m. local. It's now 5 p.m. local here, and there has been no more details from police other than that the suspect was neutralized. We've heard more from the school district in terms of details, and so it is a little bizarre that we haven't gotten more details from police on the specific TikTok. We do know that he was not able to enter the school because of the doors being locked on the school, and that's a precaution the school had put into place. But in terms of when the calls came in, how quickly police responded, how exactly the suspect was neutralized, and what exactly that means are all still question marks that we're really pressing officials here to hear more on. But again, haven't gotten a lot of information, frankly, from police here on the ground, Hallie.
Maura Barrett, more to come on this story, it seems, in the days to come. Thanks. We are just learning now a new trial for Harvey Weinstein could come as early as this fall, with Weinstein back in a Manhattan courtroom late today for the first time since his prison sentence and rape conviction there was overturned in that shocking bombshell move. You see these photos of him in court right here. A lot of questions now, right, including what does a retrial look like? When exactly could it start? Which day? Which month? And will the women he's accused of assaulting be willing to testify again? We should note that Weinstein, of course, the former media mogul, also faces a 16-year prison sentence over his rape and sex assault convictions in California. That's where we find Elwin Lopez, who's following all of this for us. There's a lot to unfold here, but let's talk about first what comes next in a case that has become and was such a cornerstone of the Me Too movement.
Yeah, Hallie, those prosecutors are asking for a retrial sometime after Labor Day. We expect that to be in the fall, but there's no exact date quite yet. This is the first time that we've seen Harvey Weinstein back in that courtroom after his conviction was overturned. We had a producer there in the courtroom. He said that Weinstein looked gaunt, ill. We know that he was using a walker and a wheelchair to get around. Also in that room, though, Hallie, was Jessica Mann, one of his accusers. She says that she is prepared to testify again against Weinstein, but it's unclear whether another accuser will also take the stand. Take a listen to what her attorney, Gloria Allred, had to say about that today.
The vacating of the conviction was re-traumatizing to her, and that it will be even more traumatic to testify once again.
And you don't see it there, but in that press conference, Gloria Allred was holding up a sign that said the Me Too reckoning will continue. When Weinstein's conviction was overturned, Hallie, it was a shock to women who had celebrated this new era of speaking up against sexual misconduct, especially in the industry. So now there's this new renewed sense, if you will, among those women to get Weinstein convicted once again. And that's something that the DA's office believes will happen there. Hallie.
What about California? Is there any chance his conviction there could be overturned?
Yeah, so his attorneys argue that his rape conviction in New York impacted his case in Los Angeles. But that one still stands right now. A state appeals court is taking a look at it. It is under review. The attorney who represents Weinstein's victim here says he believes that the California conviction will be upheld. Hallie.
Elwin Lopez live for us there in L.A. Thank you. Some breaking news now. We're just hearing early reports of a tornado possibly hitting a rural area in northern Texas. We're watching for any possible updates because we have been watching this severe storm system, series of systems, been working its way through parts of Kansas and Oklahoma. They are dangerous. They are deadly. At least one person has been killed. We're talking about a system that spawned off at least 13 tornadoes in just the last 24 hours and what's been one of the most active tornado seasons ever. Look at this from Kansas.
Big debris. Almost got hit by sheet metal.
You can hear it. You hear him say it. Look at that big debris. He almost got hit. You see that debris swirling there in the wind. You see that funnel touching down. It looks on the ground. It is whipping all of that up. It is scary to look at. You can really see the power of a twister like that. And you can see the power in this new drone footage, too, showing the absolute devastation for one neighborhood there with entire towns, basically, whole neighborhoods wiped out. Our team's tracking more than 180 reported twisters since Thursday. Maggie Vespa is live for us in Westmoreland, Kansas. And it is almost haunting, Maggie, how you have been standing in front of what you're standing in front of now, right? Just pieces of people's lives on the ground. And I have to imagine that it is not hard to find as you're traveling through this town, as you're traveling through these communities. You pick a place to stop, and there's a devastating story to tell.
Absolutely. But that is also compounded with, can we swing all the way over actually and show what's happening here? This is what it looks like when there's a devastating story to tell and there's cleanup that needs to be done before more severe weather rolls in. Hallie, we're talking, and I know you guys know this, about another potential severe system, more potential severe wind, possible another tornado. And we just saw that one on the ground in Texas. So we know this could be a rinse and repeat situation here tonight. People here know that, and they feel like they have to sift through their belongings. They have to sift through what's left, all of these piles of rubble, get what they need quickly and get out. And in this case, they also want to get major tree limbs and trunks and big pieces of debris that could fly around in another severe storm and hurt people get out of here as fast as possible. We were actually standing about 8 feet over to my left, and they came over and they said, can you please move, because we have to get this excavator in here as fast as possible and get this debris out of here. And we said, of course. So this is a community who's exhausted. This is a community who is devastated. They lost someone in these storms overnight, but they, like so many across the country, know right now we seem to be in the middle of this vicious cycle of severe weather, and they're very worried, Hallie, about more severe storms on the way tonight.
Understandably worried, Maggie, given everything that you are standing in front of, everything that you've been showing us over the course of the last 2 hours here. Maggie Vespa, thank you for being there. Please be safe. Appreciate it. Got to take you to the campaign trail now, where in just a second you're going to see former President Trump on stage in Michigan. There he is in Freeland at a rally for supporters as he's trying to make the most of what little time he has away from his criminal trial in New York. He is in the swingiest of swing spots just outside Saginaw, that country, backing him by 1,000 votes in 2016. Very tight margins there, but going to President Biden by 300 votes, even tighter margins in 2020. That is going to be the former president's last stop before heading back to Manhattan tomorrow for the next day of that criminal trial. But when our team's talking with voters there, it's really not the trial they're bringing up. Listen.
I don't hear my customers talking about it. I hear more comments about the cost of groceries than I do about the trial against Donald Trump right now.
Shaquille Brewster is live for us in Waukesha, Wisconsin, where the former president just left. So you're at rally 1 of his for the day. We are looking live, if we can pull up that split screen here, of rally 2. The question is he going to make news in these rallies, right? We're not going to play it live. We have seen these kinds of things before. Give us a sense of the posture that the former president has. He is talking a bit about what he sees as the political persecution in these trials against him.
You know, it would be more exciting.
Right, Hallie. And I think when you watch both what we saw in Waukesha and what you're seeing right there in Michigan, it is clear that this is his preferred venue. In fact, just a couple of minutes ago on stage in Michigan, he talked about that New York courtroom and said, this is where I much rather be. And it makes some sense. Instead of having a judge in New York fine him $9,000 for violating a gag order, he's able to talk to his cheering crowd about whatever they want to hear and have them applaud him based on whatever he says. Instead of hearing testimony about a catch-and-kill scheme or hear testimony about alleged hush money payments, he's bringing people up. We saw here in Waukesha someone who had an Uncle Sam costume on. So he is in a much lighter space right now. He clearly prefers being in this setting. And then there's also the policy here, because we heard him talk about a mass deportation force. We heard him talk about abortion and being proud that Roe v. Wade was overturned, even as he's getting attacks like that from the Democrats and from the Biden campaign here in Wisconsin. But despite that, you see from his tone, and you probably hear from his tone as well, that he prefers being here instead of in that New York City courtroom, Hallie.
Chuck, the Biden campaign, you talk about them going after various pieces of the former president's speech, what he's putting out there as the former president's doing to Team Biden. Let me play what the Biden team is pointing out tonight from the former president.
To you as union workers, and we're going to get 95% of the auto workers. I sat in the back, and you know what I did say? I said, I'd like to go down there because I see a lot of people walking down. They said, sir, it's better if you don't. I said, well, I'd like to. I'd better if you don't. All right, whatever you guys think is fine. That was the whole tone of the conversation.
He's talking about, Chuck, January 6th and him asking Secret Service to go down to the Capitol.
Right.
You know, notable context there. Obviously, one of the federal cases against him is related to everything he did leading up to and on January 6th, as well as in the aftermath, of course, of the election in 2020. This seems to be another indication of the way that the Biden campaign is looking at every move that the former president makes here.
certainly a risk there. And I mean, the interesting thing about that comment that you just played is Jack Smith is probably listening to that very closely as well, because it contradicts what we heard from one of his former aides when she testified in front of the January 6th committee back in 2022. And look, this is what we're going to see as Donald Trump hits the campaign trail. He also in Waukesha talked about abortion, and this is a topic that the lieutenant governor was here talking about it, blaming him for Wisconsin's abortion ban that was put in place immediately after Roe v. Wade was overturned. A court has now stepped in, so that ban is no longer in place, but there were billboards around this venue also doing the same. So you're going to have the Biden campaign watching these events extremely closely, pointing out the fact that he's still denying the results of the elections in these different states, because they want to target not the people inside these spaces, but outside of these spaces in these battleground states, Hallie.
Shaq Brewster live for us there, following the former president as he is on the campaign trail. This brief respite from his criminal trial, of course, this week. Back to New York tomorrow. Shaq, thanks. Coming up, a lot more to get to here on the show, including the country of Georgia erupting into really violent protests. We'll tell you the proposed law that has folks there so upset. Plus, a former executive at Nickelodeon hitting back after that explosive docuseries we've told you about, why he says he has no choice but to take legal action. Back to that critical issue of reproductive rights, as it will be an imperative for the 2024 election. In Florida today, it is officially the start of that state's very strict abortion ban, 6-week abortion ban, with Vice President Kamala Harris heading there, trying to make former President Trump the face of that ban. Listen.
I have seen firsthand, then, that this truly is a health care crisis. And Donald Trump is the architect.
So let's just lay it out in these maps here, what these bans mean for women in the South, not just Florida's, but look at this. So this is the southern region, obviously pre-Roe versus Wade. So the areas that are like the lighter yellow, the like paler color there, those are areas where abortion bans, where abortion access was available before Roe versus Wade was overturned. Take a look at March of this year. You see way more blue in this map, okay? More bans in place. Still look at Florida. It is still that lighter color, still access. This map is today, and you see how far now people who would need the procedure across the South would have to go, up to states like North Carolina, like Virginia. Our Yumish Alcindor went to one of the clinics in Virginia, getting ready for a potential influx of new patients.
Well, this is really a consequential day for abortion access across the country, and in particular in the Southeast. Here in Virginia, you have clinics that are really beefing up and getting ready for an influx of patients to come in from Florida. Here at the Whole Women's Health Clinic, they are extending their hours. They're also looking for new providers, doctors and nurses, to give more access to the abortion treatment to the women that they're thinking they're going to be receiving. They're also even elongating the gestational age that women can get an abortion. Just 2 weeks ago, it was about 16 weeks. Now they've extended that to 18 weeks of pregnancy. So that really tells you that this is a clinic that is trying their best to really service the women that they expect to come here. And I also talked to a number of people in this clinic about sort of what they're dealing with. One patient advocate, a woman who had an abortion herself, and who also talked to me about helping a woman who came from Florida with her abortion. She told me that that woman was really nervous, anxious, but she also said that she really wanted to try to comfort her. So take a listen to more of what she told me about that Florida patient.
When I talked to her in counseling, she had expressed she is a mom. She has 3 children. And her reason was, I simply can't do this anymore. And she said, I know that's awful. And I said, no, it's not. You know that you know your limits. I'm just sorry that you had to drive 11 hours just to seek basic health care.
Now, this clinic said before Roe v. Wade was overturned that they really rarely saw patients from out of state. Now they're saying just this year, 25% of their patients have been out of state. And they also said 63% of those patients had to get some sort of financial aid because really they were facing so much financial hardship just to get here to Charlottesville to get an abortion in Virginia. Now, I also want to point out that as they gear up for this, they're really trying to put a lot of women at ease. And if I could just show you, really, because we got this rare access into the abortion clinic where women are getting this treatment. Here I'm in a recovery room. When you see these chairs, this is where women sit after they've had an abortion. And you can see there are blankets. There's also just sort of these spa-like chairs. There are these journals where women can write anonymously to other women that are getting abortions to really, in some ways, encourage them because this is a trying time. I should also point out that the CEO says she feels for what's happening in Florida and that she really wants to add more clinics to the network. So she's saying that she's planning on opening abortion clinics in Southern Virginia on the border so that their people might not have to drive as far as Charlottesville in order to get that. She's thinking about doing that after having to close clinics in Texas. So it really just tells you that this is an abortion situation, an abortion access situation that they're really trying to deal with here. And of course, that's why we see the politics of this also taking center stage today with the vice president going to Florida to deliver that speech on, of course, the day where Florida is going to be having that 6-week ban on most abortions. The vice president really taking aim at former President Donald Trump and saying that he would, in her words, institute a national ban, even though Donald Trump has said that he would not do that. So a lot here to get through. Hallie?
Yumi Shalcindor, thank you very much. Let's get over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, J&J offering to pay about $6.5 billion to settle tens of thousands of lawsuits that allege its baby powder and other talc products were contaminated with asbestos and caused ovarian cancer. Now, this doesn't mean it's happening for sure. The people suing have a few months to say yes or no. Number 2, former Nickelodeon executive Dan Schneider is suing the producers of the docuseries Quiet on Set for defamation. You'll remember we've talked about it on this show. That particular program is about working conditions for Nickelodeon child stars and staff. Schneider says the docuseries went too far. His legal team argues it falsely implied he was involved in or facilitated things like abuse. Number 3, people around the world protesting for May Day, a.k.a. International Workers' Day. And in some spots, we're seeing some violence crop up. This is Istanbul, where police are firing tear gas and rubber bullets. Officials say they detained more than 200 people. In Paris, tear gas there as well. You can see some folks running away across that park. And in the Philippines, police sprayed a water cannon as protesters tried to get by a barricade. Number 4, today, the United Methodist Church reversed the church's ban on LGBTQ clergy that didn't let them be ordained or appointed as ministers. It happened at a big international conference we've talked about last week, the first one in several years. It comes as the church is getting more progressives and as more conservatives are leaving, allegedly. Number 5, Gerber launching an application to find its next Gerber baby, and this year will feature more babies than ever. That's created a lot of entries. The company says so many, their website glitched. They're working to fix it now. They say a winner will be announced sometime this summer. Still ahead, a potential menopause game changer, but doctors have rejected it for decades. We'll explain why hormone therapy is getting a second look. Plus, hundreds of baby sea turtles stranded on a beach. We're going to show you the happy ending to this one. NBC News covers hundreds of international stories every day, and because it can be tough to read or watch or listen to them all, our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they're watching in a segment we call The Global. Out of China, at least 24 people are dead after part of a highway collapsed with cars, look at that, just tumbling off the road. The ground underneath had just caved in. That spot in China, this particular area, has seen a ton of heavy rain and flooding over the past couple weeks. Out of Georgia, the country erupting into protests over a so-called foreign agent bill. Look at police firing tear gas, aiming water cannons at protesters. It's all over a bill the critics think could limit the voice of organizations like media outlets that speak up against the parliament. There's some similar provisions, similar bills in neighboring countries. Georgia's parliament still has 2 more readings of the bill before it becomes law. And out of South Africa, something like 500 baby sea turtles are washing up on some beaches near Cape Town. Experts say they were probably sucked in by an ocean current and then spit back out after a big storm hit the area. The good news is that aquariums there will take care of these little turtles for the next few months in plastic tanks they've built up. And when they're back to full strength, the plan is to release them into the Indian Ocean. Some big new research out tonight could affect how millions of women manage their health. It's basically a follow-up to a huge study 2 decades ago that, at the time, challenged how safe hormone therapy was for menopause, linking those drugs to a bunch of really bad health outcomes like strokes and cancer. Overnight, you saw doctors basically stop treatment then. Well, now this new research says hormone therapy is actually a lot safer than everybody first thought, and it could really change the way that we treat menopause. NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar is joining us now to break it down. This is like a big deal, and not even just for women of a certain age, like dealing with premenopause or perimenopause or whatever, for any woman who has this on the horizon at some point in their life. Talk us through it.
It is a really, really big deal. You know, 2002, I was just about a year into practice when that original study came out, increased risk of heart disease and stroke and cancer and pulmonary embolism. And as you said, I mean, everybody stopped their hormone replacement therapy. And even to this day, when I'm taking a history for osteoporosis and I ask women if they were on HRT, they shake their heads like, no, 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 I would never do that. So you can see how difficult it is to sort of have the sea change in the way we think about this, but it's so important. Basically, what the researchers really, kind of determined, Hallie, was that the patients in whom we saw those side effects were really much older. And what we were really interested in was what was going on to women between the ages of 50 and 60. And in fact, what they found that there wasn't an increased risk of overall mortality or heart disease. There was a reduced risk of fracture. There was a little blip in terms of breast cancer risk that was increased in combo therapy with estrogen and progesterone, but a decreased risk of breast cancer with estrogen only. So, again, I think it's going to take a little time for people to get comfortable, maybe for providers to get comfortable. But I've been counseling patients for a couple of years with these really bad menopausal symptoms. If you're under the age of 60 and don't have a ton of risk factors for hormone-related issues, it's probably okay to take for a couple of years.
What are you going to tell your patients when they ask about it?
That's, because I treat osteoporosis and because I know how important hormones are and how important your estrogen is in sort of preserving that bone density in those first couple of years after menopause, it's a conversation that I have with my patients really every day. The treatment of the most significant, what we call vasomotor symptoms of menopause, the hot flashes and the night sweats, estrogen, hormonal therapy, and progesterone are the most effective treatments. Fortunately, Hallie, there are other medicines that can be used. There was a treatment that was approved a year ago, which was a first of its kind that kind of affected the areas of the brain that are responsible for temperature regulation. So there are alternatives to hormone replacement therapy, but it really still is one of the most tried and true and effective treatments. And I think in the right patient, it can be very, very safe and effective. I think this is going to be welcome news for a lot of providers who are trying to manage their female patients as best as they can and give them the safest treatment and the best treatment.
Dr. Natalie Azar, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Coming up here on the show, the government's FAFSA fumble, why millions of students are finding themselves in limbo tonight. That's next. Tonight, the end of what could be a pretty frustrating college decision day for millions of college hopefuls, thanks to the honestly dumpster fire that was the government's rollout of this new version of FAFSA. And you probably know FAFSA. It's that federal student aid application. With the system's bugs, the issues, the delays, now forcing some applicants to press pause on making the decision of where they're going to school. Now, these issues started after the Department of Education totally revamped the FAFSA online application this year, trying to make it shorter and simpler. Hey, that's great, right? Sounds good. But many applicants say it was virtually impossible for them to actually submit the application, that they got the forms 3 months later than usual. Issues like if their parent didn't have a Social Security number, they couldn't actually submit the application. The Department of Education and a contractor also allegedly miscalculated figures on hundreds of thousands of applications, which set some people back weeks. And experts say the impact here could be catastrophic, leading to a drop in college enrollment we haven't seen since the pandemic. One group tracking FAFSA applications says they're nearly 30% lower right now than this time last year. That is a lot. That is an extraordinary number. NBC's Brian Chung is following this for us. It feels like, perhaps most generous interpretation, the DOE was trying to make things easier for families. Instead, for some of these families, they made it way harder. What happened?
Yeah, well, so what happened was that they tried to change the form to make it shorter. But the problem is when you change the form, you're changing the way that the government actually collects the data. And if the technical aspect isn't there, then maybe everything gets botched. And that's kind of the worst case scenario that played out in this case. It set off essentially a chain reaction of situations where, as you mentioned, it was something as unique as the Social Security numbers that were tripping up, the way that this data was being collected, to the DOE and FAFSA itself making errors in the way that they were distributing what they said was going to be the financial aid that these students were going to get. Either way you cut or slice it, for these students that have been waiting to try to decide what college they want to go to, this makes it even more difficult. It's already a very expensive, very taxing, very stressful process, but you have so many students that were hopeful by May 1st they'd be deciding what cap they were going to put on to decide what school they were going to be at in the fall, who are now having to wait for FAFSA so that they can then get more clarity from the schools that they've applied to about what that financial package is going to look like. So could that lead to fewer students enrolling later on in the fall? Could that lead to them taking on loans in the absence of knowing how much the government is going to hook them up with? Small colleges might have really the short end of the stick here. And then, of course, there could be deep cuts to school staff if they don't have predictability either. So, Hallie, on a personal level, we already know that this was a very stressful experience. It was really stressful for me when I was applying for college. This likely makes that even more stressful for those going through it right now.
So what's next then?
Yeah, well, when it comes to those students that are facing delays with FAFSA, and again, the Department of Education says that they've already gotten 8 million applications processed. Many schools are offering some relief in the form of pushing back that decision date from today to, in some cases, the middle of this month, or even as late as as late as the middle of next year. The Department of Education does say that new applications are being currently processed within 3 days. They say they've really gotten past the majority of the bugs that they've experienced. But again, take a look at the deadlines. There are 3 ones you need to be aware of. The FAFSA online application is open through the end of June, but there are also state deadlines that are going to be different in addition to the individual school deadlines. Make sure that if you are applying right now, you are looking at all 3 of those deadlines, Hallie.
Super smart. Brian Chung, thank you very much. Lots to follow on that one. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.